All right. This is Harlem Emergency Network. Bob Ponce and Carol Johnson live.
Good morning.
And we're here to talk about preparedness for coastal storms and hurricanes. As you know, we are in hurricane season. And so between now and really up to November, storms could happen at any time. And so we wanted to share with you some tips on how to be prepared for a coastal storm. So, some of the things you want to do is when you hear an alert that a storm is coming, you usually have sometimes 48 to 72 hours, sometimes as much as 96 hours. You want to start by bringing outdoor, any loose objects such as plants, window seal gardens, lawn furnitures, garbage cans, anything that's outside you want to bring in and secure. You want to anchor objects that would be unsafe to bring them inside, like gas grills or propane tanks. You want to turn those off. Uh, you want to close your windows and outside doors securely. And you also want to move valuable items from the basement to upper floors because basements are vulnerable to flooding during coastal storms. Um, Also, you want to do this: charge your cell phone batteries. When you know the storm is coming, you want to have a fully charged batteries because you might lose power. If you have a car, if you have a vehicle, you want to top off your vehicle with fuel. If you have a generator, you want to top off your generator with fuel. Uh, if you live in an evacuation zone and you have a vehicle, you might want to think about moving your vehicle to higher ground. Um, also, turn your refrigerator to the coldest setting you have. This way, if you lose power, your items that need refrigeration will stay cooler for longer. You want to fill your bathtub up and other large containers with water because you might lose water service if your power goes out. Again, if you have, 48 to 72 hours, you might want to refill your prescription medications to make sure that you have everything you need during this time. Um, Take out some extra cash, including some small bills if possible. Uh, Take out photos of valuable belongings in case they're needed for insurance purposes. Um, and be prepared in case you lose power because that's something that often can happen if a storm is severe. Make sure you have all the recommended items in your emergency supply kit, your go bag, and if you have any concerns about how loss of power or services or public transportation may affect you, you may want to think about evacuating. Now, those of you who are in high rise buildings and basement apartments, you might have special risks. So, if you live in a high rise building, make sure your windows are closed and stay away from the windows in case they break or shatter. And as we mentioned before, basements are vulnerable to flooding. So, if you live in a basement apartment, you need to shelter above ground. Carol, do you want to share some information about Notify NYC?
Yeah, that's a great way to get information of what's going on, not only with emergencies, hurricanes, storms, but also to find out what's happening in your neighborhood. Um, as Bob was saying, we're vulnerable. I know East Harlem is a flood zone, South Bronx is a flood zone. There's a lot of projects here and along the eastern seaboard, and you might want to pay particular attention to this, especially since for the next 7 days it's expected to rain heavily. And we don't need heavy rain in areas like ours, in these basin areas, to flood. So if you're on First Avenue, Second Avenue, FDR Drive, you might want to think about, if it's a possibility that you have to evacuate, that you have someone that's out of your area to go to. Contact those people ahead of time. Let them know you're coming. The thing about areas like ours is that when they flood, it happens so quickly. You know where you live. You know what it looks like with a simple storm, how things can get backed up. If you have disabilities, you're in a high rise, even if you don't do it now, you need to make it your business to make sure that your management is aware of your needs, that your family is on board, ready to, assist. The fire department, the police department, let them know that you're there. If you're oxygen dependent, you need to let somebody know. We have a habit of, what's in this house stays in this house. But in an emergency, you don't want to get stuck, as Bob said, in a blackout and you have no electricity and your family member or you may be oxygen dependent and you can't use your equipment. Keep those things fired up. Try to stay off your phone. If you have to communicate through text. It takes less power. If you can, between now and then, we always preach. We're preaching, about preparedness, because we see where people end up when they don't prepare. And over and over again, people go through the same situations. At what point do you realize it's time for you to do a little something extra? And so start that preparation now. It hasn't started raining yet, but you can run out now if you can on your lunch hour, get a couple extra bottles of water. We are in hurricane season. Along with hurricanes, blackouts can come. Blackouts can happen any time of the year. So a lot of times we think it's only summertime. Get some canned food, some snacks, things that you can eat and that you don't have to heat up, you don't have to cook. Tuna fish, salmon. Also, think seriously about preparing a go bag. You may have to get out of your home. And I know certain areas like along in the Bronx, Lower East Side, Harlem, East Harlem in particular, that water will rise quickly. And if you're someone who has any accessibility problems and you have to get out of there, especially if you have motorized mobility chairs, those chairs can flood and they can, make you a victim and get stuck in the water. So you really need to inform and talk with your family and have a serious talk about that. Also, that go bag. Change your clothes, change toiletries, small toiletries. Bob said also a little money, a flashlight. Do you have a flashlight? And if you do, and it's not an LED, do you have batteries to back it up? Please don't use candles. That you're taking an unnecessary risk. You never know what might happen with that. So you want to have a flashlight. You want to have a first aid kit. You want to have a few items in there. If you have pets and you have to evacuate, go to knowyourzone.gov and find out what your zone is. There's 6 zones, 1 and 2, in the case of flooding, severe flooding, and surges. The East River will surge, and we get really high tides at a time. And that's the reason why, because we're so low lying, that areas can be flooded. We have areas on 2nd and 3rd Avenue that's not even considered a first 1 or 2 zone, but they have flooded. They have horrible flooding in that area. So if you're in one, know your zone. If you're in 1 or 2 zone, those are more like immediate evacuation areas. Check to see where your shelters are. You can go into that area, know your zone, and also there's a link in there to find your shelter in the event that you can't go to someone else's home. And so you want to have that go bag with a few little things, a book, snacks, a bottle of water. You're only going to get the bare necessities. And that's why we really, really stress that you put that bag together. Your medications, if you use what do they call it? The CPAP machine. If it's something that you need to sleep with, you need to have that in there. And be ready, because it's going to take a minute before those pieces of equipment can be accessible. And if you have a pet, your pet is allowed. I don't think, Bob, correct me if I'm wrong, you can't take your iguana or your parrot or your snake. But if you have a service animal, you can go. And they're not going to ask you if it's licensed to be a service animal. If you come in with a cat or a dog, you can bring them. Problem is, they won't be in the room with you, but there will be an area in the shelter where you will be able to spend time with them. So bring, their snacks, a little chew toy, and you can go there because people are allergic to pets, and so they have to be separated from everybody else. So again, 7 days of hard rain is expected. And since this is the time where it's still a little clear, foggy, but it's not raining yet, that you might consider going out and getting some extra stuff.
And as Carol mentioned, the storms often give us a little bit of a window beforehand, but flash floods can happen at any time. We've had flash floods at the 145th Street train station, an area where people think it's elevated and not subject to flooding, but we've seen it twice in the last couple of years. And so, anywhere, you can see a flash flood, and so you have to stay alert and aware. That's another reason to sign up for Notify NYC. And if you're special needs, you want to really be in front of these things. If you have special needs in terms of medical equipment, or mobility issues, or special machinery that you have to have of a power outage, then you need to operate on these things even more rapidly than anybody else. And so we're just telling you these things. When you stay ready, you don't have to get ready. But if you're not ready now, now is the time to get ready, because we are in hurricane season. So if you start to think about these things now, if something happens, you will be ready to deal with it.
And if you're seeing this broadcast, we'd like you to at least hit like so that we know that this information is getting out. It is of vital importance that you take heed. We see things happen over and over again, and people say, I wish I had, but we don't have to do that today. We can be ready and not have to worry about what I should have or could have or would have done. Your family, your children. Remember, if you have elders in your home, that means not only do you have to worry about yourself, but you have to worry about that elder's needs, that child's needs, and so it's a little easier when you're by yourself. But if that's your situation and it's a family situation, yeah, you need to be prepared for all of them, because if it's a situation where you have to evacuate, that means everyone has to go. So when you make those bags, make sure you have clothing for your children if they take any type of medication, also a little toy, a little book, coloring book, crayons, whatever to keep them busy. Again, snacks and water. Same thing for your pet, and just keep it as simple as you possibly can. And change of clothes for everyone, and so you can get the little toiletries from the 99-cent store. You get the little toiletries and make sure you have that in there too. The whole thing is that you want to be as comfortable as you can when you're not in your home. And, things are not going to be readily available. I know anxiety builds hunger, and, things are not going to be available as soon as you get there. There's not going to be a gourmet meal ever. But when you get there, and if you're thirsty, or you'll have a little snack, a bag of peanuts, some cheese crackers, whatever it is in your bag, and some water for everybody. So it's just about preparation. Again, we don't come to scare you. We come to prepare you. We do this on a regular basis. We see what people look like when they have to go to shelters, and they're unprepared, and they're angry, and they're nervous, and they're anxious. I mean, it's just a cacophony of things that take place. People start going through mental changes. And when you find yourself in a place of preparedness, even at the lowest level, you feel better, because you can go and you don't have to sit there in the same clothes. You can go and freshen up and change your clothes. And your children, if you have babies, make sure you have some diapers, a few diapers in there. They will get baby clothes depending on how long you're going to be there. They will get baby clothes, feminine items, and different things like that. razors for the guys just so that they'll feel comfortable. But that's not going to happen right off the bat. So as comfortable as you can make yourself and your family, the better off you're going to be.
So this has been an informational message from Harlem Emergency Network. We ask you to take this information, like it, share it with other people. It'll take a couple minutes of your time, but that couple of minutes could make a difference if you get into a situation where a coastal storm or hurricane is affecting your life and your well-being. So thanks for listening.
Thank you. Stay safe, everyone.